Okay, for this particular segment, we're going to go over a simple computational example. Things are going to look a little tricky here, but with, what are our numbers, Drew?
You mean 5, 6, and 7?
1, 2, and 3. There's only that much, we're not 40 numbers here, so the computational analysis, D here. In order to get an F-score, we need to get the variance between groups and the variance within groups. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you look at the top thing, it says the variance between groups equals what, Drew?
Variance between groups. I don't see that.
It's under D, computational analysis.
Oh, sum of squares between groups over the degrees of freedom between the groups.
Yes, so if you want to get variance, if you remember back to the old days, variance is the sums of squares over degrees of freedom. So variance between groups equals the sums of squares between groups over the degrees of freedom between groups. Let's actually cut to the really simple part of the chase first. Degrees of freedom between groups. Let's get that computation first.
So it's 3 minus 1, so it's 2 for each group, so it would be 4?
Not quite. Good guess. How many groups do you have, Drew?
2.
So how many degrees of freedom between groups if you have 2 groups?
1.
There you go. So degrees of freedom between groups. You made the exact mistake that I would have predicted. So degrees of freedom between groups, the way you compute that is you say, how many groups do you have? Minus 1. So df, we already have the denominator. df between groups is 1.
It's groups minus 1, not minus.
That was easy.
Makes sense.
Okay, now we have to get the sums of squares between groups. The way you do this is that next formula. Holy Toledo. N times the quantity x bar minus x bar bar squared. That looks pretty messy, doesn't it? Okay, so let me tell you what these symbols mean. X bar bar. That's the grand mean. What is the grand mean of all the numbers here?
6 plus 18, so 22.
The grand mean, the mean of 6 and 2 is what?
Oh, 6 and 2 will be 4.
The grand mean, x bar bar, is 4. So if you want to write x bar bar, or the grand mean, you can even just write grand mean is 4. So x bar bar is 4. What about x bar? That stands for each group mean. X bar stands for each group mean. What's the mean of the first group?
2.
2. So if you want to write the first group mean is 2, what's the mean of the second group?
6.
6. So let's have a little computational fun. So, n, and we'll write this out. What is n for the first group?
3.
3. So we would do 3 times the quantity. What's the mean in the first group?
2.
3 times the quantity. 2 minus,
1.
not quite, what's the grand mean?
Oh, 4.
3 times the quantity. 2 minus 4, quantity squared. 3 times the quantity. 2 minus 4, quantity squared. And then you need to do the second group. What's the mean of the second group?
6.
Plus 6 times the quantity.
Times 2.
6 minus 4, quantity squared.
Lost me a little bit.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So for the first one, it's 3 times 2 minus 4.
Quantity squared
What's the quantity squared? Is that the 2 squared?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
plus 3 times the quantity 6 minus 4, quantity squared. So
Oh, okay.
you take the first group mean, subtract it from the grand mean, the second group mean, subtract it from the grand mean, and because you have 3 in each group, you multiply times 3 and square it. So 3 times the quantity 2 minus 4 squared. What's 2 minus 4?
2.
2 squared is
4.
4. And what's 4 times 3?
It's 12.
12.
There we go. I got it now.
And what's 6 minus 4 quantity squared, or 3 times 6 minus 4 quantity squared?
That's 2.
Squared is 4
4. There we go.
times 3.
It is 12.
So what is your sums of squares between groups?
24.
Bingo!
There we go.
You can kind of logic it out a little bit more over time, but can you kind of... The sums of squares between group is you take the mean of the first group, subtract it from the grand mean, take the mean of the second group, minus the grand mean, square it. Everything is squared. Remember variance, everything is squared.
Right.
You multiply it by how many you have in the group. So sums of squares between groups is 24. Kind of see it? And if you need to go over, you can, but it does work.
I probably followed the recording.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sums of squares between groups is 24. The degrees of freedom between groups is what?
It's 1.
1. So what is the variance between groups?
24.
24 is the variance between groups. I'll stop it there.